Hay's a pretty common finding around a cattle ranch, but around here, we do it a little different. Hey everyone, Dr. Arlen Hill out at Harvest Hills Ranch, and you can see we've got a pretty good bit of hay here behind us, and I bought this hay back early before the cool season. I actually bought this hay, most of this hay back in the summer in preparation for the winter. But we actually make a point around here to try not to use any more hay than what we absolutely have to. We want the animals, the cows, to forage on their native pastures, and we try to build up as much of a stockpile in preparation for the winter months as possible. But this year, just as an example, when the first of the year hit, there wasn't much stockpile left out there in the pastures, and the cows needed something to turn to. So we used bales with them. But again, as I started out saying at the beginning of the video, we do things a little different around here. And what I mean by that is there's two things that are really different about the way that we do hay here. First of which is how I source my hay. These round bales are not bales that I've made, but I actually worked with an individual that took me a while to seek out, and we really got to understand how they make hay. Point being on this is that they don't use any chemicals, any herbicides, any pesticides, so I'm using a chemical-free hay that is really not a problem. I'm trying to keep these animals as clean as possible, not worrying about making them toxic and then having to do things to try to clean them up. We've eliminated all of that. Now, you'll notice on this, I like to try to keep their diet as diverse as possible within reason in the winter months, which is definitely not easy. But you'll notice you can see from these bales, this is a little lighter colored bale, and then over here I've got a little darker colored bale, and that's really only a difference in the grass. The darker colored bale that you see there, that's Bahia grass. That's actually the predominant grass out in our pastures as well, so the cows are accustomed to that. The lighter colored bale, these are native grasses. These are grasses that don't tend to regenerate as fast, and they're going to have a different nutritional profile than the Bahia grass does. Now, when we feed these a couple of different ways. I have a specific hay trailer that I put these on, and we found out early on that we had to keep these bales up. If we didn't, we were gonna end up wasting a lot of hay, and we contrasted that against the way that we make hay. So we buy hay, but we also make hay to try to get the most use out of our grasses, out of our pasture land, but also to be completely comfortable. Not that I'm not comfortable with where my round bales come from, but I know exactly at the peak season, and this is key because when I'm watching my pastures, I know when the nutritional quality in my pastures are at their peak, when the grasses are at their peak, and I can plan for my cutting at that point. And so when I give those bales that I make to the cows, they're getting the peak of the nutrition just like they would if it were at that time of the year or in the summer when they were eating that. But how do we really do our hay around here? Well, what's the big difference between how we do it in these round bales? Well, here's how we differ from most cattle ranches. Most cattle ranches use round bales. They're honestly easier to make, and depending on the bale, these bales weigh about 800 pounds, but I'm gonna contrast that to the way we do it, which is square bales. So let's walk in the barn, and I'm gonna show you our square bales. Well, you can see I've got a stack of square bales behind me, and these are bales that we made. Now, there's a couple of reasons that I use the square bales in place of the round bales. So let me share with you why I do that. And I tried to take a common sense approach to this, but also an approach that makes sense for the animals as well as our longevity in ranching as well. And here's what I mean by that. So you'll notice right off the bat that a square bale is much smaller than a round bale. And point being on this is that these are about 40 pounds. I can handle these, Leah can handle these, and it makes it where if she's the one that's handling the cows that morning, she can easily throw these on the gator. We can take these out to the pasture, and she can throw these out to the cows just as easily as I can. These can also, because of that because of the lightness, we don't need a tractor to move these to load them on the hay trailer. We can just load these up by hand. So it makes it a lot easier to move around. We're late in the season right now. We're towards the end, and normally we'd be stacked to the ceiling most of the way down through the barn back here. But right now, we've decided for this year to clean these out, and we're gonna give the cows all of these by the end of the year and let them, we'll start back over in this coming warm season. The other reason, as I alluded to, is that these were actually cut when they were at the peak of their nutrition. There was quite a few different plants in the pasture at that time. So while this is predominantly Bahia grass, it's not exclusively Bahia grass. And a lot of times when hay's cut, it's cut for a single species of grass. And I personally don't want that. And it's actually hard to not get that when you're buying outside sources of hay, because most people do want a specific, just coastal grass or just Bahia grass. They just want one thing. And in my opinion, this is just my opinion, that's a monotonous profile for the animal. They want some diversity in there. There's different nutrients, different medicinal compounds in these plants that when I cut them, I'm gonna get those in there, whereas I may not otherwise. Here's what else is really interesting. Where these bales were cut from, and I know this because of where we initially pulled these when we were stacking them here in the barn out of the pasture. Where the cows are at right now and where I'm feeding these at right now is exactly the area that I baled this off of. So I'm literally completing the cycle where the cows are eating the grasses, they're dropping the manure is fertilizing the grass, and in turn we're getting the benefit back into the next round of grass growth in there. And so we're literally putting that grass, we're not taking this hay away from the farm or doing something outside with it. We're putting it right back where it was harvested from and putting all those nutrients right back into the soil to keep these cycles rolling forward. So it's different. It's not the same as, say, what most cattle ranches do, but it works for us. And one of the other reasons that it worked for us is that I was able to get into hay fairly cheaply compared to what it costs to get into most hay operations. I don't have a ton of money invested in hay equipment. Literally, guys, I spent $250 on a hay rake. That is unheard of, but I kept looking and we found one. And is it the greatest hay rake in the world? Nope, but it is completely functional and it will put hay in a windrow and allow me to run a square baler over the top of it. So I don't have thousands and thousands of dollars invested in this. So if I cut a little bit and have some hay set aside, just bale a few bales of hay, it's fine by me. I'm still to the good in terms of expense on that. So with that being said, if you like the information, hey, like the video, hit it with a thumbs up. If you know someone else who is interested or might be interested in regenerative agriculture and wants to understand or at least wants to see the decisions that are made behind what brings high quality food to their table, share the video with them. We'd like to get this information out there and appreciate you taking your part in helping us do that. I'm Dr. Arland Hill out at Harvest Hills Ranch. We'll see you soon.